I want to thank everyone for coming and listening to our 2019-20 budget message. Try to go over a lot of different variables that are going to impact our budget this year. About 2 weeks ago, I was fortunate to go and meet with our governor and other legislators and talking about the importance of an investment in K-12 education. And currently, right here in Beaverton, I believe we're doing what's right for students. But in order for us to continue along that pathway, not only for Beaverton, but for all other school districts in Oregon, we need a significant and sustainable investment in K-12 education. We are going to base our budget on the governor's budget of 8.97, and also just want to say thank you to our governor for coming out with such a strong number. The 8.97, while it's not adequate, we believe it was a great starting number and took into account our current service level. As most of you know, the co-chairs now have come out with their budget, and it's about $100 million less than the governor's budget, which is not good, and we are going to encourage, advocate for that number to be increased. And while some folks are saying that the number is a $650 million increase at the co-chair's budget, and an 8.1% increase overall from the last biennium, it's important to note that because of PERS, Public Employment Retirement System, that number will not adequately fund us at our current service level. So it's really not an investment in education. It's going to be specifically a decrease in funding for Beaverton as well as other school districts. Specifically, the other thing that I think is important to know at Beaverton, right now we are projecting a $35 million deficit at budgeting at the 8.97 governor's budget. However, it's also important to note that that $35 million deficit does not take into account any possible roll-up cost incurred in certified bargaining. So just to be clear, there is no cost of living increase budgeted within the $35 million deficit. So anything that is budgeted will add on to that $35 million. Approximately half of the $35 million deficit can be attributed to PERS, the PERS liability, and just to be clear, about a third of every dollar that's coming into public education system right now is going to support the increased cost in PERS. A lot of folks don't know that, but it's also important to note that teachers only make up, or school employees only make up about 40% of PERS employees. So I think sometimes PERS increase gets equated strictly to our teachers, and that's not true. Whether you're city employees, county employees, or most of our police and firefighters, and folks that are working in state government are also PERS employees. And as I think has been demonstrated, we cannot do anything about PERS. The PERS issue has been forwarded throughout the courts, and we still have this liability, and I think we're going to continue to have this liability, not only for this biennium, but probably for the next 3 bienniums. So it's going to be an ongoing cost that we are going to have to incur, and we believe that really the only thing that's possible is for there to be a significant and sustainable investment into our system. It's important to understand also that going forward in our budget that we are making the kinds of investment in Beaverton that needs to be made. We have 184 school days for our students, probably the most number of days for any school district in Oregon. We are investing in early childhood education, which also the governor and legislature believes is the right thing to do, getting at those families and students before the achievement or opportunity gap opens. We're investing heavily in career technical education. We were doing that even before Measure 98, and with Measure 98 being partially funded, we're able to expand those programs. We're also making increased investments in social emotional learning. So we are starting to see more and more students come into our system with trauma, health aspects that we have not been ready to serve those students. Trauma, social emotional learning. We're seeing a lot more anxiety with our students, and so being able to address some of those mental health needs is imperative, and we're not going to be able to address some of their academic needs before we get and dive into the social emotional learning. So we've made some of those heavy investments in all of those areas, but here's the thing, we cannot continue to make those investments. We cannot sustain those investments right now. Another area that adds to our $35 million deficit has to do with the pay equity legislation that was passed and went into creation January 1st. That has added also to our deficits, and one of the things that I believe Beaverton is ahead of that game. Many of the other school districts have not begun to estimate what that cost would be. We are also invested in making sure our class sizes are acceptable, knowing that as we see more and more trauma come into our classes, that teachers need to be able to get around to each and every child. So having acceptable class sizes is imperative. As we prepare to go into this budget, we've really taken a lot of time. Our internal budget team has met. We've prioritized, and I just want to be honest, none of these cuts are good for kids. None of these cuts are good for kids. Anytime you take away a program, you increase class size, you take away resources, tangible resources out of the classroom, it's not good for students. Having said that, one of the things that I want to make sure, though, is still, even with some of these cuts, Beaverton will have what I consider one of the premier education programs in Oregon. Once again, we have a salary schedule that is competitive, so we can go out. We want the best teachers in front of our students. We want our best classified folks, and I think we have a salary schedule that is very competitive. Once again, we're investing in early childhood education. We have a community who has supported class size by passing a local option levy. We have a community that's supported our infrastructure by passing a school bond, one of the largest school bonds in history. So we do not have to put very much of our funding into infrastructure, and it can go directly into the classroom. Our students have option programs. Parents and students have choice in Beaverton. We have career technical education programs. We are focused on dual credit, AP, IB. There are a lot of things that take place in Beaverton, a lot of options for Beavertons for their parents and students that folks don't have. But in order for us to continue this, we need that investment that is going to be sustainable in Beaverton. Another aspect of this budget, I think it's very important for folks to understand, is the timing is going to not be good as we prepare a budget. I have to prepare a budget for our board and budget committee, and it has to be passed by June 30th. Our legislature will not probably have a number to us until sometime around the 1st of June. And then even if they do pass some sort of significant tax reform, the chances of that being sustained and not going to the voters in November is doubtful. So bottom line, if our legislature comes up with a tax package, we are estimating that it will be referred to the voters in November. Therefore, even if we know we were getting the money, we're not going to be able to spend that money. So the chances of any significant revenue reform being realized probably is not going to happen until the spring of 2020. And I tell people we're going to have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's hard to say because it's very difficult to tear down programs, but even more difficult to build those programs back up. So we are estimating with a $35 million deficit somewhere reducing in the neighborhood of 200 licensed positions, 8 administrative positions, and some classified positions to be determined. All 3 groups will see some sort of reductions, but it will be very difficult. And as we get ready to prepare the budget, it's really difficult for those staff members who may be newer to the system and their lives could be impacted. So we're trying to be as transparent as possible, getting the messages out, and but more than that, we're really trying to advocate for our legislature and making sure that they know that the decisions that they're going to make, what they're going to put forth through their legislation is going to have a long-term, lasting impact on our students. We need significant, sustainable funding, and hopefully there's been talk about about a $2 billion package. That's for the biennium, so $1 billion each year. And with $1 billion each year, we would be able to maintain or expand some of the programs that we currently have right now.